Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be going over this large historic winter storm that is going to be occurring across the Northeast. At this point, it is a guarantee this thing is occurring. We are very confident in this storm's track. There is a lot of heavy snow potential, a lot of things that could be very dangerous with this system. There are blizzard warnings issued, and again, I was calling this a blizzard for the past several days, and some people were saying that, oh, it's just a winter storm, not a blizzard. And no, with the winds and the pressure of this system, it would be very unlikely that the National Service wouldn't issue blizzard warnings, in which they have at this point. So I'll be going over many cities, many locations that could be picking up snow from this. And towards the end of the video, I do want to say, for those that don't live by the Northeast, I will be going over the potential for a very probably equally as significant and impactful storm, but across the central United States. So we have back-to-back very large systems. While I do want to say that the that the time period between these two storms is pretty pretty significant. It's not just like 24 hours. It's 5 to 6 days, so it's not immediate. We'll definitely have time later on to talk about it, as this is probably my last day that I'm going to be talking about this winter storm, as this thing's going to be occurring tomorrow and then it's out of here. So I may make a video about this tomorrow, maybe even live stream for the heck of it, because why not? I'll see. But yeah, I just want to say before we start talking about this, if you enjoy this channel, if you like what you're seeing, obviously consider checking it out, consider exploring it. If you would like, you could hit the like button, you could hit the subscribe button, you could drop a comment. And I always say this at the beginning and at the end, because I always forget at the end, but otherwise that would be probably more appropriate. But let's move on and start talking about this winter storm. So if you haven't prepared yet or haven't done anything and you live across the Northeast, you probably should have done something at least, but don't be, super concerned, as this thing is very potentially massive, and it will drop a lot of snow. It's relatively quick hitting this portion of the country. While yes, this is a significant storm, they are relatively used to these systems. They do occur at least usually a few times per decade of such magnitude. So, this isn't going to be seriously something that probably will pose a huge danger for any person in particular. But if you live across the eastern seaboard north of, say, New Jersey, southern New Jersey, you still have a decent amount of time to do whatever you want, or do things that will help you prepare for the storm. So I would advise that you do that, because by tomorrow at this time, it will pretty much be impossible to get going. So let's go over the total anticipated snowfall. Now, this is a very cool graphic I discovered a few years ago on weathermodels.com. It's a paid service, but what I can look at is the National Weather Service and their predicted snowfall for the Northeast. So if this looks like a model, it kind of is in a model format, but it's actually the National Weather Service predicted snowfall. So this is very accurate. It gives us a look at what the National Weather Service predicts, without having to click on individual cities and kind of estimate. Okay, so this is what this office calls for. This is what this one calls for. Here we have a very good look. So do note that there is going to be snow across Virginia, West Virginia, not huge amounts, but definitely there. Look at that. Delaware, seeing most areas over a foot across the southern portions. Extreme northern Delaware, probably under even half a foot, maybe so around 5 to 8 inches, I would say is a good estimate. Maryland, the areas that are bordering Delaware could be seeing a few good inches of snow. I don't know exactly where Virginia and Delaware start, or I think this is a part of Delaware, this area. This little tail may not be, I don't know, but basically this little dingling tail all the way down to the very coast of it, it will be over 6 inches, increasing as you go up towards Atlantic City. Trenton maybe a bit less, because that gradient is very sharp. So again, extreme eastern Long Island may be experiencing almost 1.5 feet, while New York City by itself still a very good snowfall, just closer to kind of 8 to 12 inches. Connecticut, you can see Hartford around a foot of snow according to the National Weather Service. Boston, especially south around the Plymouth area, probably the heart of the system in terms of the heaviest snow, just extreme amounts. They are calling for localized amounts over 30 inches, which is really a high amount of snow for those that, it's honestly, even if you have seen amounts that are in the double digits, like 20, 30 inches, if you haven't seen it in a few years, it always takes it takes you off guard. And I speak not really from experience of seeing 30 inches, but say there's a foot of snow expected, and that does sound a lot, but then you sometimes get desensitized to that if you have quite a bit of big storms every once in a while. But always, every time you get like a big snowstorm here in my area, it always takes me aback at how much snow that actually is in real life, because it's hard to picture that snow. But I mean, 30 inches is extremely hard to picture, so it's pretty much a blockbuster event, a historic one for those areas. Notice Maine also really good snowfall amounts up along the coast into Augusta, Portland. But as you get towards locations like Caribou, a bit less because it's further towards the north, and you can see that even areas like New Hampshire, the coastal areas, getting a lot, but Vermont, for example, really kind of like the twin state of New Hampshire, not getting really anything too significant. And again, there will be a pretty sharp gradient here. So this is just an estimate. It's not the end-all be-all total snowfall guarantees, but it's definitely good forecast. So if you were to take a look at the Philadelphia office, it is snowing right now already. Notice that it will be starting again tonight and really going into tomorrow and ending late tomorrow, Saturday night. But there are blizzard warnings, not for everyone, but for Atlantic City, for example, not for Philadelphia. There's a storm warning, still very significant. And look at this. This is very interesting, but it shows the true power of this storm. Hurricane force wind warning. So basically they're saying that the winds are as strong as it would be with the hurricane, except it's not a hurricane. So that's why we're saying it's hurricane force wind. It is very important that I note that these hurricane wind watches and warnings, while they sound scary, which they aren't on land. These are a bit off the coast, and quite a bit actually off the coast. And you can see that they're speaking in waves and in knots, which is again implying that this is part of the really ocean right here. So that's not really on land. Though still, again, blizzard warnings are issued because of how strong the winds are going to be on land. Just again, not 75 miles per hour. Just still pretty decent, 40, 50 miles per hour wind gust could be possible. Notice, again, this is the tricky thing, right? Philadelphia 6 to 8. You could have a line that even resembles pretty similarly what the National Weather Service has right here, but maybe, there's a little dip going to Philadelphia. There's a bit more rain that pokes in, or sorry, not rain, a bit more dry air, and it lingers. Some of those snowfall amounts to be a bit later. Or maybe, there's a bit more rain towards the coast, and some of these amounts or not warm air, maybe just a bit further inland, and we see, this higher amounts, maybe some double digits across Philadelphia, and then these areas also increase in terms of total snowfall. Regardless, you could see it's a big event. Reading, Allentown, those areas will be getting smaller amounts, but again, you could get into like the 4 or 5 inch range if the conditions are favorable. Sharp cutoff, again, meaning that the confidence is a bit lower. Notice blizzard warning is in effect for these areas, so, coincidentally, the highest snowfall and the strongest winds making the biggest impact. And then, of course, if you take a look at the Boston area, under a blizzard warning, which again is probably the most extreme weather watch. It's probably or warning that is given in terms of winter weather, especially with such heavy snow amounts. You can see tonight's not that bad for Boston, but look at tomorrow. This looks like something you'd seen in Sierra Nevada. 14 to 20 inches, obviously a massive event, and then still Saturday night a 3 to 7 inch event, which is pretty significant. And if you were to take a look at the blizzard warning, where you could see that the range is pretty wide, 18 to 24 inches, but it's going to be also hard to measure with the. I mean, look at those wind gusts. So the drifts with such strong precip amounts. I wouldn't be surprised if you see precip or drifts that are over like 8, 9, 10, even to double digits feet tall. So, those are obviously dangerous. And if you get that up against your door or your car, where that thing's buried for several days until the snow maybe melts, it becomes more watery, or obviously until you kind of take it out, bury it out, which would also require a lot of work and potentially danger. You don't want to overwork yourself with all this. This is Maine, so it's further up north. Do note that these snowfall amounts here are very significant as well. 10 to 16, 4 to 8. Wind gusts also very powerful, and the drifts equally as probably high and dangerous, because drifts are really dangerous, especially if you drive your snow into one unexpectedly. That could just completely stop your car or whatnot and catch you off guard. There's a lot of risks that come with that, not to mention just the unpleasantness of wind blowing a vast area of, I want to say, winter weather advisories to the south, all the way to South Carolina, North Carolina. This is something that I want to talk about, because a lot of these areas, while yes, they don't have the jarring blizzard warnings, these areas still could see some decent amounts of snow. Let's take a look at the area near Raleigh. less than 1 inch, less than half an inch. You could still, the roads will be probably snow covered. It's falling at a decently cold temperature, and you could see that it's not going to be all too balmy on Saturday, so a lot of that may not melt, and Saturday night it gets cold. Later on, you can see it's warmer, so thankfully, that probably will melt whatever it falls, but for the few days, that could definitely pose a hassle, which is why they issued those winter weather advisories. I think we already clicked on this weather office. Let's take a look at Virginia, because there are, Virginia Beach could be or is under winter storm warning for higher amounts. And again, there's a sharp gradient between these amounts. But let's take a look at Richmond, right? Another pretty large city in Virginia. You won't get slammed by the system, but you will get 1 to 3 inches. Again, it may be a bit higher, a bit lower, but the gradient isn't as tight for these areas, so the confidence is a bit more. You can see 3 inches, and you get towards the west or the east, towards the ocean, to shore, you get 4 to 6, and then eventually, as you get into Maryland, Virginia, wherever the boundary is, I think that might be Virginia. Up here is Maryland. You get 12, potentially inches. As much as 12 inches. So here in Florida, the system's big, and pretty far down to the south with that cold air, and that's why Florida has some freeze warnings. And anywhere here we have wind chill advisories, which again, if there's different qualifications. So to the north, the wind chill advisory is usually around 20 Fahrenheit, below 20, negative 20 Fahrenheit, feels like. And then in this case, in Florida, there's wind chill advisories. If you take a look at Orlando, and we take a peep at this, I would assume that they are probably in the 20s. The wind chill advisories, maybe of some of that degree, yeah, from 25 to 30, which is pretty cold for these areas. Again, that doesn't mean that the actual thermometer is that of that reading. You can see it's actually pretty balmy there right now, and the night will be chilly, 39, and especially right there Saturday night, 30. So if you have any crops, any sensitive, citrus, what it may not be, get that bundled away, because it is going to get pretty chilly. So there's impacts of the storm that aren't even seen on this overall large radar, which, by the way, I mean, this thing's eye-catching enough. Tomorrow, or today, I guess tomorrow at 12 a.m., the first hour of the day, you could see that this thing is already intensifying. Currently, as we speak, this is barely a low pressure. It's at around 1,004 millibars, so again, that's not strong. And look, this thing bombs out. It goes to 990 by midnight. So midnight, if I'm probably going to sleep at that time, it's already quite a bit stronger than right now. It's dumping snow across New York City, much of the Northeast, into Virginia, North Carolina, or South Carolina. Then this thing, by tomorrow in the morning, this thing's very strong. 981 millibars, again, kind of almost like a Category 1 hurricane strength in terms of millibars. Winds also matching that. You could see really just slamming the coastal areas with tons of snow, tons of wind. And again, that rain snow line staying pretty far off the coast, so that's not really a good threat, other than maybe for Nantucket converting into some rainfall. Do note that there's almost like two low pressures that form, one that kind of goes to the north and one that starts forming towards the south, again kind of prolonging the system. It's still snowing as of noon across New York, New Jersey, Delaware. Some of these snowfall rates will be 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches of snow an hour, which is pretty much impossible at that point to keep up with shoveling it in terms of snow plows and whatnot. So travel, and especially with those winds, is going to be pretty nearly impossible. And that's not really an over-exaggeration. Boston, again, especially seeing those extreme snowfall rates, and then as the system pulls into Maine, you can see develops that secondary low pressure, or kind of, I guess there's an eye wall replacement. It's not really an eye wall, but there's a low pressure replacement, and you can see that this thing finally starts pulling away. So by the time it is late Saturday or Sunday, even really mid-Sunday, early Sunday morning, you'll be gone out of, say, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, Maryland, even Boston, but still it's snowing across Maine and southern Canada. But then by Sunday, I should say, in midday, it's gone. So you'll have a decent amount of time to clean up before the new work week. If you're to take a look at the total snowfall, again, the GFS is pretty conservative with these amounts, which, again, I don't think this is the best model to show for the snowfall amounts. I think it does a good job with the timing, which is why I went over that, as all models kind of fairly agree on that. But in terms of a more accurate snowfall model, I think it's something like the Canadian, though, again, this one, they all on this website assume a 10-to-1 liquid ratio, which a lot of this will be falling at a colder snowfall. So again, some of this will be much higher than even what this model shows, which, let me zoom in, and by itself, the wrong region by itself. These 10-to-1 ratios are still pretty high across. You could see we're right there, Long Island up to 10 inches, but you could probably multiply that by 1.5, or if not more, 15 inches, and 12 you can multiply that by almost 2 across Boston, as it will be colder, and that could drop up to again 24 inches, if not 30. But I do think that the best model out of all the models is the European. And you can see that it shows very similar amounts. Again, taking the heaviest slightly off coast for, say, New Jersey and Delaware. Again, some of these amounts are going to be higher because this as well assumes a 10-to-1 ratio. Though, again, Boston seeing the most. These amounts, again, 16, that's underplayed. That's assuming a 10-to-1 ratio. So let's just click on a Canadian because that one was pretty similar to the European. Some discrepancies, though. And let's take a look at the Kuchera, and you can see those amounts are more probably resembling of what may happen. You can see 20 or maybe 20, 25 inches. And across Maine, there might be also some very high amounts, not because of more precip, but again, it's just a bit colder. So that's that from the Canadian model. United Kingdom model, this one did a decent job with that. I wouldn't say amazing, but it was okay. And you can see there's our nor'easter, a bit, I think, a bit too kind of scattered, those rain, those snow blotches, and a bit. You can see it's here. It's way into northwestern Connecticut. Here it barely touches New York City. I think it'll be a bit more uniform. So, and this one didn't have that good of a handle over it. So let's just take a look at some high-res models like the NAM. I think this one does a good job with the snowfall. And yes, some of these amounts are very high. You can see New York City around a foot, Long Island getting towards the double digits, meaning 10 plus easily, if not maybe even approaching 2 feet. And then this may be a bit overdone. Yeah, I don't think there will be widespread 30 plus amounts, but definitely 20s, 25, 6, 7 inches. A few amounts or a few locations will get those amounts, and into Maine as well. It's very, very possible. And that was the noon model run of the NAM. You can see this is the evening one. Really not much has changed. In fact, some of these amounts have actually increased for Boston, so that's interesting to note of. Another model that I'd like to look at when a short-range event is about to occur is the Canadian high-res. You could see not as profound with those amounts. Again, I don't think it has that good of a handling. I really think that would be an underperformer if it just dropped 14 inches across Boston. For New York, that's maybe more appropriate, 8 inches, but 14 right here, these amounts are, I think, underdone considerably by the Canadian high-res. Her model doesn't go out far, but when it does, it's supposed to be more accurate. And you can see that it shows actually well over 2 feet across Long Island. New York City at around actually over a foot for most of the city. Southern New Jersey around a foot. Northern New Jersey around 5 to 8 inches. Delaware several inches, right? DC, you're not going to be seeing too much out of this. Philadelphia probably around, again, 6 to 10 maybe. And again, you can see it shows quite a bit into Boston, but especially Maine, according to this high res, which again, they all have their own little twist of this. This is another model, kind of comparable to the one I just showed you, but slightly different. And you can see that this model shows similar amounts, but again, favoring more of Maine with the heaviest of the heaviest. Still heavier everywhere else. So, again, this thing is impressive by almost all means. I do want to show you the radar currently. You can see it's already looking pretty impressive, and what we're noticing that is concerning are these banding features, right? And do note that this is actually extending into just south of DC, right into actually Richmond. So if you recall, Richmond was supposed to get 3 inches of snow. However, if, say, Richmond gets stuck under this band for several more hours, that's going to probably double. And we've seen this scenario earlier on in the year, or last year in December, across Minneapolis. There was forecasted around to be, I think, like almost a foot in some areas, but then this band set up similar to in this nature, and it dropped up to 21 inches across some areas. Almost double the amount was forecasted. So again, if this type of stuff continues as we push this into the northeast, then some localized amounts could definitely push the 3 feet, meaning 36 inches. But we'll have to see. I'm not too sure this will be occurring later on. Though again, the such a strong band is a bit of a concerning feature. And any other cities that are along here, even Philadelphia, just south of Philadelphia, Dover. Dover, if you recall, Delaware is supposed to get a little bit less. If this thing continues even for another 2 to 3 hours, you probably are going to pick up several inches in that time, meaning 3 to 4, and then you could definitely exceed over 10 with the remaining of the system. So you can see this whole plethora of warnings, advisories associated with the system is rather extensive. And again, this probably will be my last upload about this system. Sorry about that. Do note that it's still snowing across areas like Louisville, Kentucky, way back into portions of, pretty far from the system kind of center. And it's not solely just a system snow that's occurring there. It's kind of also with a cold front. But again, this thing is a lot more impressive than it just may seem on the radar or whatnot. But even on the radar, I mean, this thing is just going to be impressive. This thing is a massive system, and you could see that as I push this forward with the Canadian, I mean, this thing is just massive with those millibars. Super strong system. And right there, tomorrow during the midday, areas like Boston may be seeing several inches of snow per hour. So that's definitely going to be a cool phenomena. I did want to mention, because I said I might talk about that big winter storm at the end of the video towards the next week, and I do want to say that, or talk about that briefly right now. So this is a growing potential. I would say I would be talking about this for the past few days if it wasn't for this beast that was really hogging up the headlines, right? But yes, that is very noteworthy. But then look what happens. So we start seeing more Pacific moisture. The Gulf of Mexico is opened up with moisture. It's starting to get warmer now, folks. We're past the last week of January, or the second to last week, when usually temperatures bottom out. The days have been getting longer for quite a bit at this point, and atmosphere always reacts around 3 to 4 weeks delayed. So if you've ever wondered why the shortest day occurs in December, but it only starts warming up late January, where in terms of averages, it starts starting to, temperatures kind of bottom out 3 weeks later. It's because there's always a delayed reaction between the atmosphere and the kind of the astronomical alignments that control the atmosphere to an extent. And you can see that what that means is basically we could start seeing more abrupt kind of convective activity across the Gulf, and a bit more powerful. I mean, honestly, even in December, if you recall, we had that massive winter storm that brought tornadoes into Iowa, Minnesota. So it seems at this point, in the past decades, we've been seeing these kind of breaking of the rules, regardless of what season it is. But it's still a lot easier for a system to get up moisture once we start seeing the warming of not the waters, but just the temperatures. And do note that right there, we see a system almost coming out of nowhere, but we see a little disturbance towards the west, drop some snow into Denver potentially, Nebraska, this could be a clobber house, Kansas City, you could see a lot of ice, freezing rain, again, not far out. This is next Tuesday and into Wednesday. This is Friday, so less than a week. And notice there's a lot of large cities that could be impacted by this massive beast: Chicago, Detroit. How far north or south the system is, it's a big question mark. This could trend towards the south, so putting areas like Des Moines out of the heaviest snow, but then putting cities like Indianapolis maybe into the snow versus the rain. And you can see it's multi-pronged. While this is already significant, look what we start seeing: an ice storm of very large portions into Texas, lake effect snow. We see into kind of Illinois, Wisconsin, more snow into the Northeast, rain on top of all the snow Boston might get. So that's going to be another concern of flooding. And then look, we see this thing kind of dig up along the jet stream, which could produce a lot more snow for, again, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, for areas that got rain first time around, or ice. But this is a nightmare. If this were to set up, look at areas like Erie or Cleveland or Columbus. You could be under the ice for several good period, for almost half a day. If that were to occur, you could get crippling ice potentially accumulations, and that would not be good. So after that system pulls away, which again you could see it's still lingering, this would leave a noticeable footprint. Again, some of this snow right here is assuming this first system we have going on, but all of this is new. Some of this over here is overdone, actually a lot of this to the south, because that includes sleet, and again there won't be 9 inches of sleet. So but still though, a good amount. I think you could actually look at positive snow depth change. Actually, nope. I think there's a feature on here that you could click on that would kind of discount the sleet. But regardless, this is a potentially, again, a very large winter storm. And I do want to say that even past this beast, if I put this forward, this radar, we see a bit of a break, right? Maybe a few days. Again, some models show already another system in this current time frame, but eventually all models start showing another system. You can see this time bringing snow further inland into upstate New York, into Canada, maybe a few clippers again, few more significant systems. And just to show you, yesterday, for example, at midnight, I think the GFS really showed like many systems. There's that big one next week, and then it showed little smaller ones, but quite a few of them. I don't think that's the model run I wanted to show you. there was really one that just went off on all hinges in terms of its activity, and it might be the one yesterday in the evening that did that. And you could see there's that nor'easter, there's that big storm midweek. You could see that's what it showed. I think it might be this model, and then it showed a lot of cold air. You could see another system that's pretty significant, pretty big to watch for, and another system. So yeah, it's an active pattern for sure, and we'll have to keep an eye on this. Maybe it was even the 12Z. I know that there was one model one for sure that just really showed storm after storm. It might have been this one. You can see storm after storm after storm following that northwest flow, dipping towards the south, getting moisture from the Gulf, and then dipping. Alright, that's basically it though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.